The enemy feared the name of the human princess. From her balcony high in the palace, Princess Orlia watched the morning unfold, her eyes scanning the horizon as if she could see beyond the mountains and forests into the heart of the galaxy itself. Though young, she carried a presence that made people stop and listen, a quiet authority that seemed to grow stronger with each passing day. The humans of Elysium Prime were considered weak by the rest of the galaxy. Their colonies were small, their ships slower than those of alien empires, and their technology, while clever, was limited. Most outsiders saw them as nothing more than a footnote in galactic politics, easily ignored and easily conquered. But Orlia knew something they did not. Humans were underestimated, and underestimation was a weapon. She turned from the balcony as her aide, a tall young man named Kale, approached with a tablet in hand. "Princess, the scouting report has arrived," he said. "The Xyrath Empire has moved their fleet closer to the outer colonies. It seems they suspect resistance activity." Orlia took the tablet and studied the movements of the massive ships. Their formation was tight and aggressive, showing no mercy. The Xyrath were known across the galaxy for their brutality and precision, a force that crushed rebellion without hesitation. Yet she smiled faintly, almost imperceptibly. "They always underestimate us," she said softly. "And that is their first mistake." Kale frowned. "But Princess, the colonies are not ready for a direct assault. If they attack—" "We will not wait for them to attack," Orlia interrupted. "We strike first, but carefully. We choose when and where. That is how humans survive. That is how humans win." Her words were calm, but in them was a spark that lit hope in those who served her. Orlia had already begun organizing resistance cells in secret. She had trained them not only to fight but to think, to plan, and to act with intelligence and courage. Her plans were often risky, but they always had the advantage of surprise. That was humanity's greatest weapon, ingenuity. By the time night fell, Orlia was ready. The first mission of the morning would be daring even by her standards. The Xyrath Empire had stationed a small supply convoy near the asteroid belt, sending routine shipments to the outer colonies. To intercept it would be dangerous, but it was exactly the kind of operation that would prove humans were more than they seemed. Orlia gathered her closest allies in a dimly lit chamber beneath the palace. Maps of star systems and ship positions flickered on the walls, illuminated by holographic projectors. Each member of the team nodded as she outlined the plan. "We strike here," she said, pointing to a narrow passage among the asteroid fields. "Their patrols are predictable. We will slip in, disable their engines, and leave no trace. No ship lost, no lives wasted unnecessarily. They will think it an accident. But they will remember the name of the human who did it." One of the older captains, a man named Lior, spoke up. "Orlia, you are asking too much of your people. The Xyrath will not forgive even a small strike." "I do not ask them to forgive us," Orlia replied, her voice firm. "I ask them to fear us, and if they do not, then we will show them why they should." The team prepared through the night, checking every detail of the mission. When dawn arrived, Orlia donned a simple pilot suit, her hair tied back and her expression calm. She entered her ship, a sleek but unassuming craft that carried no weapons visible to the outside. To the Xyrath, it looked harmless. That was another part of her plan. The journey to the asteroid field was tense but silent. Orlia's co-pilot, a sharp-eyed pilot named Rin, glanced at her. "Are you sure about this?" "I am sure," she said. "They think humans are weak. They think we cannot plan this. That is why it will work." As they approached the convoy, Orlia observed the ships through the viewfinder. The Xyrath freighters moved slowly, almost arrogantly, under the assumption that no one dared challenge them. Orlia smiled, feeling the thrill of what was to come. She gave the signal and her team sprang into action. They moved like shadows among the asteroids, invisible and silent. When they reached the convoy, Orlia guided the ship with precision, sending small drones to attach to the engines of the freighters. Within moments, the drones activated, and the engines sputtered before failing completely. The convoy drifted helplessly, trapped in the field of asteroids. Panic erupted among the Xyrath crews. They had never faced humans capable of such calculated strikes. Before they could organize, Orlaia and her team withdrew into the shadows, leaving the freighters damaged but intact. It was a message. Humans could strike without warning and without mercy. By the time the Xyrath managed to repair their ships, word of the incident had already spread. Orlaia's name began to circulate quietly among the colonies, whispered with a mix of awe and fear. Even the smaller alien factions started to pay attention. The human princess was no longer just a figurehead. She was becoming a symbol. Back on Elysium Prime, Orlaia returned to the palace as the first rays of sunlight broke through the clouds. She walked through the quiet halls, her mind already planning the next move. Every victory, no matter how small, was a step toward a larger goal, proving that humans could survive and even thrive against the most powerful forces in the galaxy. In the council chambers, her advisors gathered to discuss the aftermath. The Xyrath will retaliate, Lior warned. They will send a fleet. They will not ignore this. Let them come, Orlaia replied. We will be ready. And when they face humans who can think, who can plan, who can fight with intelligence and courage, they will learn why our name is feared. The days that followed were filled with preparation and subtle maneuvers. Orlaia moved among the colonies, meeting leaders and inspiring them. She demonstrated that humans could work together, even under threat, and that ingenuity often outweighed sheer strength. Her presence was magnetic, people listened, and they acted. One evening, as the stars spread across the sky like a glittering canopy, Orlaia stood once more on her balcony. The galaxy was vast and danger was everywhere, but she felt no fear. She thought of the Xyrath fleets, the alien commanders who would soon face her clever strategies, and she smiled. They think they know humans, she said quietly to herself, but they do not know me, and they will learn. Her gaze shifted to the horizon, where distant worlds shimmered like points of light. Somewhere among them, other humans were rising, ready to follow her example. And somewhere, far from Elysium Prime, the first whispers of her name began to reach enemy ears. The name that would soon inspire hope and fear in equal measure, Orlaia, the human princess. The first strike had been a success, but it was only the beginning. The Xyrath Empire would not forgive, and the galaxy would soon understand that humans were far from fragile. They were clever, resourceful, and unstoppable when led by someone like Orlaia. As she turned from the balcony, Orlaia knew the path ahead would be dangerous. There would be battles, traps, and sacrifices. But she also knew that humans had a secret power that no alien could match, the ability to adapt, to innovate, and to never, ever give up. That night, Elysium Prime slept under the stars, unaware of how history was quietly changing. The name of the human princess began to spread, whispered among allies and enemies alike, growing into a legend that no empire could ignore. And Orlaia, the young princess with the sharp mind and brave heart, was ready for whatever came next. The galaxy had underestimated humans. It would be a mistake they would come to regret. The galaxy had begun to whisper her name. Orlaia, the human princess, was no longer just a symbol of hope for her people. She had become a shadow in the minds of her enemies. Reports of her daring raid on the Xyrath supply convoy had spread faster than she could have imagined. The smallest outposts and the largest fleets spoke in hushed tones about a human who could strike without warning, who seemed to anticipate every move of the Xyrath Empire. Yet Orlaia herself did not revel in her growing legend. She understood that fear alone would not protect her people. Intelligence, planning, and courage were the tools she relied upon. The Xyrath Empire, while shaken, was far from defeated. And now the threat was more personal than ever. A message had arrived from the outer colonies, carried by a sleek, neutral starship. The message was simple. The Xyrath Empire had dispatched their deadliest general, Krill Vash, to capture or destroy her. Unlike other commanders, Krill was not merely powerful. He was cunning, patient, and feared even among his own people. His reputation was such that entire systems surrendered before he arrived, convinced resistance was useless. Orlia studied the message in silence, her hands resting lightly on the table. Around her, her advisors and closest allies waited, tension hanging heavy in the air. Krill Vash, she murmured, tasting the name. They send their best, and yet I will not run. We will face him and we will outsmart him. Lior, ever cautious, spoke first. Princess, this is dangerous. He is more than a warrior, he is a strategist. One mistake, one misstep, and he will find us. I know, Orlia replied calmly. But if we act cleverly, if we use what they cannot anticipate, we can turn this into an advantage. Krill will not expect humans to think this way. That is our strength. Her words were not empty. Orlia had already begun assembling intelligence networks across the galaxy, planting spies and listening devices in places where even Krill's forces might not suspect. She had allies in neutral systems, merchants who moved freely among star lanes, and even some alien factions who resented the Xyrath Empire's dominance. Over the next several days, Orlia's team worked tirelessly. Star maps were analyzed, patrol routes memorized, and communications intercepted. Every piece of information was cataloged, cross-referenced, and used to anticipate the enemy's next move. The humans moved like shadows among the stars, careful to leave no trace. They were preparing not just to survive but to strike, and to do so in a way that would turn the galaxy's perception of humans even further. One evening, as Orlia walked through the corridors of the palace, Rin approached her quietly. "Princess, we have a problem," he said. "One of the outer colonies has been attacked. The Xyrath forces are searching for resistance leaders. We may be next." Orlia's eyes narrowed, but she did not show fear. "Then we act. We cannot hide forever. The colonies need to see that we can protect them. That is how we inspire, not just survive." The next morning, Orlia boarded her ship once again. Unlike before, this mission was not about stealth alone. It required strategy, timing, and the ability to think several steps ahead of an opponent who was infamous for doing the same. The target was a Xyrath communications hub located on a barren planet near the edge of the system. By disabling it, Orlia could slow Krill's advance and buy precious time for her coalition. The journey through space was tense. The crew worked in near silence, focusing on every detail, every potential hazard. When they approached the planet, sensors detected patrol ships circling in predictable patterns. Orlia studied their movement, smiling faintly. They are predictable because they do not expect humans to understand pattern and timing, she said. We will use that to our advantage. Using the asteroid belt near the planet, Orlia guided her ship along a path the Xyrath would consider impossible. The patrols missed them entirely, assuming the small human craft was no threat. Orlia's team deployed drones to infiltrate the communications hub. The drones moved silently, slipping past security measures with precision. Inside the hub, the drones began their work, shutting down the central arrays and rerouting transmissions. For hours, Orlia and her team worked, monitoring the status and adjusting their strategy as unexpected complications arose. A small patrol ship detected the activity and moved to investigate. Orlia's team had anticipated this, using diversionary holograms to lure the patrol away. The Xyrath were clever, but they had not prepared for humans who thought in multiple directions at once. By the time the mission was complete, the communications hub was offline. Krill Vash's forces would find themselves temporarily blind, forced to rely on limited reports and guesses. It was a small victory, but a critical one. Orlia's actions had slowed their advance and given hope to the outer colonies. As they returned to Elysium Prime, the crew celebrated quietly, aware of the importance of what they had accomplished. Orlia, however, remained thoughtful. "This is only the beginning," she said. "Krill will come. He will learn of this and seek revenge. We must be ready for him." Indeed, news soon arrived that Krill Vash was mobilizing, bringing with him a fleet of warships and elite troops. Unlike the other commanders, he did not attack recklessly. He studied reports, considered human patterns, and prepared for a confrontation that would test every skill Orlia possessed. The human princess, however, did not panic. She used the time to further strengthen alliances, train her forces, and refine strategies. Every small action, every clever maneuver, was designed to teach the galaxy a lesson. Humans were not weak, and their leaders were capable of brilliance that few could anticipate. One night, Orlia convened a meeting with the leaders of the allied colonies. The room was filled with representatives from human and alien factions, all nervous yet inspired by her presence. She spoke with clarity and confidence, outlining strategies, assigning roles, and explaining contingencies. "We will not fight like the Xyrath," she said. "We will fight smart. We will move with speed and precision, and we will make them regret ever thinking humans were fragile." Her words were more than strategy, they were inspiration. The Allied leaders left the meeting with renewed determination, spreading her vision to their people. Across the galaxy, whispers of the human princess spread further, growing into a legend that even Krill Vash could not ignore. The first skirmishes with Krill's forces were small but telling. Orlia had anticipated every move, using clever traps, diversions, and the terrain of each planet to her advantage. Time and again, Xyrath troops found themselves outmaneuvered by humans who seemed too small and weak to pose any real threat. Every victory, however minor, strengthened the confidence of her people and the fear of her enemies. In one particularly daring encounter, Orlia led a small team to disable a Xyrath mining facility. Krill's scouts were present, expecting an easy engagement, yet Orlia had arranged everything perfectly. She used the facility's own machinery to create chaos, blocking reinforcements and forcing the Xyrath to retreat in confusion. When the battle was over, Orlia stood among her team, calm and composed, as though nothing had happened. Yet the galaxy was watching, and the story of her cleverness spread quickly. Despite these victories, Orlia never underestimated the danger. She spent long hours studying reports, speaking with scouts, and planning contingencies. She knew Krill Vash would adapt, and when he did, humans would face their greatest challenge yet. One evening, as she walked along the cliffs overlooking the sea, Kale joined her, a worried expression on his face. "Princess, they are sending signals. I think Krill is preparing something massive, not just a strike, an assault. They may come for us directly." Orlia looked out at the horizon, the waves crashing against the rocks below. "Then we will meet them head-on," she said, "but we will not fight like they expect. We will use our strengths, our speed, our cleverness, our unity. That is how humans survive." In the days that followed, Orlia worked tirelessly. The colonies prepared defenses, intelligence networks expanded, and the galaxy's smallest ships became lessons in precision and cunning. The humans were no longer hiding. They were rising, led by a princess whose courage and mind were unmatched. Finally, word came that Krill Vash had arrived in the system. His fleet was massive, more powerful than any Orlia had faced before. But she did not falter. She gathered her closest allies, outlining a plan that relied not on strength but on ingenuity. Every maneuver, every strike, every retreat was calculated to confuse, divide, and weaken Krill's forces. As the first engagement began, humans and their allies moved with a unity and intelligence that stunned the Xyrath. Ships that seemed insignificant caused chaos among the larger vessels. Strategic strikes disabled weapons and engines, forcing the enemy to fight on terms they had not anticipated. Krill Vash, observing from his command ship, frowned. The human princess was unlike any opponent he had faced. She did not fight like the Xyrath. She fought like a mind that refused to be defeated. By the time the first battle ended, the humans had won a remarkable victory. The legend of Orlia grew even stronger, and across the galaxy, whispers turned into stories of a princess who could outthink generals and inspire nations. Krill Vash, though defeated in this engagement, was already plotting his next move. And Orlia, ever calm, was preparing for the challenges to come. The galaxy was beginning to change. The human princess was no longer a secret, and her people had learned that with courage, intelligence, and unity, they could face even the most feared enemy. And far across the stars, in the silent corridors of his command ship, Krill Vash considered the name he had begun to dread. Orlia, the human princess. The galaxy was watching. Tales of the human princess and her clever victories had spread far and wide. Even worlds that had never heard of Elysium Prime were buzzing with the story of Orlia's brilliance. Her people, inspired by her courage, moved with newfound confidence, while the enemies of humanity whispered her name with fear. Yet Orlia herself did not pause to enjoy the legend. She knew that Krill Vash would not be idle, and the challenges ahead would test every skill she possessed. Orlia gathered her closest advisors in the Grand Council chamber, its walls lined with holographic maps of star systems and fleet movements. The room was tense, filled with humans and allies from other planets. Krill Vash is not a reckless commander, she said. He has learned from our previous engagements. He will strike harder, faster, and with greater force than ever before, but we are ready. We have prepared, and we will fight smart. Lior, the older captain, shook his head. He is still more powerful than we are. He could wipe out our fleet before we have a chance to respond. Power alone does not win wars, Orlia replied calmly. Strategy does, intelligence does, courage does, and humans can surprise the universe in ways no one expects. Over the next several days, Orlia coordinated a series of maneuvers that would test the limits of human ingenuity. Her fleet, though smaller and less armed than the Xyrath Armada, was organized with precision and clever tactics. Patrols were placed strategically to gather intelligence, supply lines were hidden, and contingency plans were prepared for every conceivable scenario. Orlia worked tirelessly, knowing that one misstep could cost her people dearly. The first major confrontation began near a system of dense asteroid fields. Krill Vash had advanced with his fleet, confident in his strength. He expected humans to scatter, to hide, to rely on luck rather than planning. Orlia, however, had prepared an ambush. She used the asteroids to conceal her ships, positioning them in unexpected locations. As the Xyrath fleet moved in, the humans struck with precision, disabling engines and weapons with minimal risk to themselves. Krill Vash was surprised. Not often did he face an enemy capable of predicting his moves, but he was quick to adapt, issuing orders to his ships to counter the ambush. The battle became a test of wits, strategy, and timing rather than raw firepower. Human ships darted through the asteroid field, appearing and disappearing with calculated precision. Each move was designed to confuse and frustrate the Xyrath, to force them into mistakes. Orlia's eyes never left the battlefield. She coordinated her fleet with calm efficiency, giving orders that seemed almost effortless. "Divide their forces here," she said, pointing to a cluster of asteroids. "Draw them into the narrow passage. There, now strike from both sides." The plan worked perfectly. The Xyrath ships, lured into the trap, found themselves surrounded and forced to retreat. Though they were far larger and stronger, the humans' clever strategy allowed them to win a decisive victory without heavy losses. Among her fleet, cheers erupted, but Orlia remained focused. This was only the beginning. In the aftermath of the battle, Orlia convened her leaders once more. "Krill Vash has learned something," she said. "He knows we are capable of strategy. He will adapt, and he will not forgive our victories. We must be ready for his next move." True to her prediction, Krill's next assault was more formidable. He had reinforced his fleet with new ships and brought elite soldiers trained to anticipate human tactics. The next engagement took place near a system of gas giants, whose shifting gravitational fields could aid or hinder any fleet. Orlia saw opportunity in this natural obstacle. She positioned her ships where the gravitational pull would give them speed and maneuverability while slowing down the larger Xyrath vessels. The battle began with intense energy. Lasers flashed across space, and missiles streaked between the planets, yet Orlia's fleet moved with coordination and precision. Smaller ships darted in, striking at weak points, then retreating before the Xyrath could respond. Every maneuver was calculated to exploit the enemy's assumptions and their overconfidence. Orlia herself led a small strike team through the heart of the battle, using the gas giant's gravitational fields to slingshot around enemy lines. Her actions were daring but calculated, demonstrating both courage and intelligence. The Xyrath soldiers, seeing humans operating with such skill, began to doubt their own leaders. They had expected an easy fight, yet found themselves outmatched not by brute force, but by strategy and cleverness. By the end of the engagement, Orlia had not only won the battle, but also captured several Xyrath vessels intact. These ships would provide critical intelligence about Krill Vash's fleet and strategies, giving humans an even greater advantage. For the first time, even Krill began to feel a growing respect for his opponent, though he would never admit it aloud. Back on Elysium Prime, Orlia did not allow herself to rest. She knew that Krill Vash would return, more determined than ever. The victory so far had inspired her people, but the war was far from over. She focused on strengthening alliances, training her forces, and refining strategies for the challenges that lay ahead. Every small victory was a stepping stone toward a larger goal, proving that humans could survive and even thrive against the mightiest enemies in the galaxy. One evening, as Orlia walked along the palace gardens, Rin approached her. "Princess, we have intelligence from the outer colonies. Krill is gathering more forces. He may attempt a direct assault on Elysium Prime itself." Orlia nodded thoughtfully. "Then we must be ready to defend not only our home but our people. The battle will not be easy, but humans are clever. Humans are resourceful, and humans under the right leadership can accomplish what no one else expects." Her words carried weight. Across the colonies, humans and their allies began to prepare for the impending conflict. Defensive positions were strengthened, supply lines secured, and communications encrypted. Orlia ensured that every detail was considered, every contingency planned. She knew that the Xyrath Empire would not wait, and she intended to meet them with intelligence, strategy, and courage. The next major confrontation came near a strategically vital planet that served as a hub for human and allied trade. Krill Vash's fleet arrived with overwhelming force, expecting to crush resistance quickly. Orlia, however, had anticipated this move. She had laid traps, hidden mines, and diversionary fleets to divide and confuse the Xyrath forces. The battle was intense. Lasers cut through space, missiles streaked past, and smaller ships darted in and out of enemy lines. Orlia's fleet moved with coordination and precision, striking at weak points, drawing the Xyrath into areas where their size became a disadvantage. Krill Vash found himself frustrated, unable to bring his full power to bear. Every attack he ordered was met with human ingenuity, every maneuver countered with clever strategy. During the battle, Orlia led a small team in a risky maneuver to disable the main Xyrath command ship. Using a combination of stealth, speed, and clever tactics, they infiltrated the enemy formation and struck at the core systems. The Xyrath command ship was disabled, leaving the fleet in temporary disarray. Krill Vash, observing from a distant vessel, clenched his fists. He had underestimated humans, and now he had paid the price. Yet he remained composed. He would adapt. He would learn. But for now, the humans had proven their intelligence, their courage, and their ability to outthink even the deadliest general in the galaxy. By the end of the engagement, the humans had secured another victory, solidifying Orlia's reputation further. Across the galaxy, whispers of the human princess grew louder. Systems that had once feared the Xyrath Empire now considered joining the human alliance. Allies arrived, inspired by her leadership, and enemies reconsidered their assumptions. Orlia, however, remained vigilant. She understood that the greatest challenges were yet to come. Krill Vash would not be defeated so easily, and the war was far from over. But humans had shown that they could rise, that they could fight with intelligence and courage, and that they could inspire even the most uncertain allies to join their cause. One quiet night, as Orlia stood on her balcony overlooking the city of Elysium Prime, Lior joined her. "Princess," he said, "you have done something remarkable. You have inspired people across the galaxy, but I worry Krill Vash will not stop. He will return with even greater force." Orlia looked out at the stars, her expression calm but determined. "Then we will meet him again. And the galaxy will continue to learn the truth about humans. We are clever, we are resourceful, and we will never give up. No matter the enemy, no matter the odds, humans will survive, and we will rise stronger than ever." The stars shimmered in the distance, and the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. The name of the human princess spread farther with every passing moment, a symbol of hope, courage, and intelligence. And somewhere among the stars, Krill Vash plotted his next move, knowing that the human he had come to fear would challenge him in ways no other opponent ever had. The stage was set for the final battles, where strategy, courage, and human ingenuity would be tested like never before. Orlia was ready. Her people were ready. And the galaxy, for the first time, realized that humans were forces to be reckoned with. The legend of Orlia, the human princess, was far from over. In fact, it was only beginning. The galaxy held its breath. The legend of the human princess had grown beyond stories and whispers. Entire star systems watched as Orlia prepared for the ultimate confrontation with Krill Vash, the Xyrath Empire's most feared general. The battles so far had proven her brilliance, her courage, and the ingenuity of humanity. But this final clash would determine the fate of the human colonies and the galaxy's perception of her people forever. Orlia stood on the balcony of her palace, looking out over the city of Elysium Prime. The sun was rising, casting a golden glow over the bustling streets below. Humans were moving with a quiet determination, preparing for what was coming. Ships were being readied, supplies distributed, and defenses strengthened. Every action was precise, every plan calculated. Orlia's people trusted her, not just because of her victories, but because she inspired them to believe in themselves. Lior approached, his expression serious. "Princess, Krill Vash's fleet is approaching. Reports indicate he has brought the full might of his forces. This will not be like the previous skirmishes. They are coming to destroy everything." Orlia nodded, her eyes steady. "Then we will meet them with intelligence, courage, and unity. Humans do not need to match brute force with brute force. We will strike where they least expect it, and we will survive. Humanity has never been weaker than anyone thinks, and this will prove it once and for all." The plan Orlia devised relied on every advantage humans had learned to use in previous battles. They would not face Krill head-on in a straightforward fight. Instead, they would use deception, speed, and clever maneuvering to divide his forces, slow their advance, and create openings for decisive strikes. The asteroid fields, the gas giants, and the narrow corridors between planets would all serve as allies in their strategy. As the human fleet moved into position, Orlaia addressed her commanders. "Remember, we do not fight like they do. They expect overwhelming strength, firepower, and intimidation. We will give them something else: intelligence, creativity, and precision. Every ship, every crew, every maneuver matters. We can win this, but only if we think, move, and act as one." The Xyrath fleet arrived with devastating power. Ships larger than any humans had seen before filled the void, their weapons glowing ominously as they prepared to strike. Krill Vash himself was aboard the lead ship, observing with cold calculation. He had underestimated Orlaia before, but he knew now that humans were capable of more than he had imagined. His expression was unreadable, but beneath it lay a growing respect and a determination to crush her completely. The battle began with a volley of energy beams and missiles streaking through space. Human ships darted in and out of asteroid fields, their movements precise and coordinated. Smaller craft struck at weak points in the Xyrath formations, then retreated before the enemy could respond. Every move had been anticipated, every contingency planned. Orlaia led a small team through a narrow corridor between two gas giants, using their gravitational pull to slingshot behind enemy lines. Her ship moved with speed and accuracy, avoiding enemy fire and positioning for a critical strike. She targeted the command ship controlling Krill's fleet, knowing that disabling it could throw the enemy into chaos. Her team's attack was daring but calculated. Using a combination of stealth technology and precise maneuvers, they infiltrated the enemy formation and struck at the core systems. Alarms blared across the Xyrath fleet as their command ship faltered. Without its coordination, smaller human ships could exploit gaps and weaknesses, striking where the enemy was vulnerable. Krill Vash watched, his mind racing. He had faced many opponents, but none like Orlaia. She did not rely on raw strength or fear. She relied on strategy, creativity, and the ability to anticipate every move. He realized that to defeat her, he would need more than power. He would need to outthink a mind that had already proven its brilliance. The human fleet pressed the advantage. Using their knowledge of the terrain, they divided Krill's forces, isolating sections and striking with precision. Every victory was measured, every move calculated to inflict maximum disruption with minimal risk. Human ingenuity shone through every tactic. Feints, diversions, coordinated strikes, and unpredictable maneuvers kept the Xyrath off balance. Despite the overwhelming size of Krill's fleet, Orlaia's leadership turned the tide. Human ships were nimble, their crews disciplined and courageous. They exploited every weakness, used every advantage, and demonstrated a coordination that surprised even the Xyrath. What seemed impossible, humans holding their ground against a superior force, was becoming reality. At the heart of the battle, Orlaia confronted Krill directly, her ship maneuvering with agility and speed that matched her opponent's skill. Lasers clashed, and missiles streaked past, but neither ship focused solely on firepower. The engagement was a battle of wits, anticipating and countering each other's moves with precision. Krill realized that brute force alone would not win. Every attack had to be calculated, every response anticipated. Orlaia's calm mind gave her an edge. She anticipated Krill's moves, countering them with creativity and daring. Every time he adjusted his tactics, she adapted, finding new ways to exploit openings and create confusion in his fleet. Human ships moved like shadows through the chaos, striking where the enemy least expected and disappearing before retaliation could come. Finally, after hours of battle, Orlaia executed the decisive maneuver she had been preparing. She led a strike team through a narrow passage in the asteroid field, using the gravitational pull to accelerate and strike Krill's flagship directly. Precision hits disabled the engines and key systems, leaving the command ship crippled. The Xyrath fleet faltered, and human forces pressed the advantage, securing a decisive victory. Across the galaxy, systems watched the battle unfold. For the first time, many who had doubted humans began to see them as more than fragile creatures. Humans had not only survived, they had outsmarted the most feared general of the Xyrath Empire and won a battle that seemed impossible. Back on Elysium Prime, celebrations were subdued but heartfelt. Orlaia addressed her people, speaking with clarity and inspiration. "This victory is not just ours," she said. "It belongs to every human, every ally, every individual who has believed in our strength. We have shown that intelligence, courage, and unity can overcome even the most powerful enemies, and this is only the beginning. Humanity will continue to rise, and we will face the future together, stronger than ever." Among her people, Orlaia was more than a princess. She was a symbol, a leader who had turned fear into inspiration, weakness into strength. Her victories had proven that humans could not be underestimated, that courage and ingenuity could rival even the mightiest fleets in the galaxy. Far across the stars, Krill Vash nursed his defeat, his respect for Orlaia growing even as his determination to defeat her strengthened. He had learned a crucial truth. Humans were unpredictable, intelligent, and capable of brilliance that could not be measured by size or firepower alone. As night fell over Elysium Prime, Orlaia stood once more on the balcony, looking up at the stars. The galaxy had changed. Humans were no longer seen as weak or inconsequential. They were a force to be reckoned with, led by a princess whose mind and courage could inspire nations. She smiled faintly, thinking of the battles yet to come, the challenges yet to face, and the people who had placed their trust in her. The human princess had proven herself not only as a warrior but as a strategist, a leader, and a symbol of hope. The galaxy would remember her name, not as a tale of fear, but as a story of courage, intelligence, and the indomitable spirit of humanity. And somewhere in the depths of space, even Krill Vash whispered it with respect, knowing that Orlaia was a leader unlike any he had ever faced. The war was far from over, but one truth had been established. Humans, under the leadership of Orlaia, could rise above any challenge. Their ingenuity, courage, and unity had turned the tide, proving that even against the most powerful empires, the human spirit could triumph. The legend of Orlaia, the human princess, had reached its first climax. The galaxy had learned that humans were far from weak, and the stories of their victories would echo across the stars for generations. And Orlaia, calm and determined, prepared for the future. The battles ahead would test her further, but she had proven one undeniable truth. The enemy feared the name of the human princess, and that fear was well earned. The stars stretched endlessly above, filled with possibilities, challenges, and new horizons. Humanity had risen, and under Orlaia's leadership, there was no limit to what they could achieve. The galaxy would never forget her name. The enemy feared the name of the human princess.